Hi guys, it's Ash from Domus Personnel. I'm here today with Peter Buturo, founder and director at Bold Leap, supporting young people on their journey to independence. I'm super excited. Peter's took time out of his busy schedule to answer three pertinent questions that we want to hear, his views on. And also we want to hear your views on it as well. So definitely make sure you comment. But Peter, look, the first question I'd like to ask you is what do you feel social workers should be doing more pertinently to support young people?
I think that's a great question. I think, for me, one of the key things is relationship with your young person. I think that's the core, that's the base from addressing any sort of actions with a young person is, can they trust you? Can they depend on you? Can they rely on you? Are you consistent? Um, can you do what you said that you're going to do, and when? And be honest with your young person. I think being transparent with them about sort of expectations and time frames. I think that's very, very important. Relationship is fundamental for young people when you consider that for many of them, they've had not so good relationships, whether that's family, whether that's peers. And so I think what they do need is us as practitioners to be sort of consistent in our approach with them.
No, I take on board your points, and I know you've been, you've got a number of years' experience in actually building them relationships with young people. But specifically, what is it that you feel could be done to build that relationship? How do you actually create that trust with that young person?
I think, being being you, being authentic, being real, and making sure that that comes across to the young person, understanding their narrative, their journey, understanding where they're at, taking time to invest with a young person, whether it's a text or a phone call, not just doing it when it's statutory time frames, but actually going above and beyond sort of the call of duty, as it were. And I think they will certainly one appreciate that and know that actually he or she is investing more of their time with me. So I think that that's very important.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. So, in a roundabout way, you're going above and beyond the kind of call of duty. It's not about statutory time frame or kind of meeting deadlines. It's actually about taking that time and investing it with that young person. So, no, I
Absolutely.
take on board that point for sure. And obviously, as of the 31st of March, I believe there's around 80,000 people, young people in the care system. It's a staggering number. What do you feel we could be doing, within social work to help prevent, that number increasing, but actually try to decrease the number of people entering care?
Well, I mean, the number of young people coming into care has always sort of been on the rise for several years now. But of course, if you look at the last 12 months in isolation, we know the pandemic has been sort of unprecedented in terms of the impact it's had on families, on young people, on mental health, and so therefore it's increased children coming into care. And I think this approach has to be sort of a collective approach with multi agencies working together. So that's education, whether that's social work, whether that's health, and finding a way of how we can actually strengthen families and prevent young people coming into care, but also recognizing it has been a very, very difficult last 12 months for young people. The impact, for example, not going to education, to school, their routine's been sort of, out the window. And so the impact it's having on young people. And then also in the family home, the dynamics in the family home. I think that's something that, we have to, look closely. How can we as an agency, as a local authority, as practitioners, be more creative, be more imaginative, be more understanding with young people coming into care? And I think that's important.
I take on board that point. Um, Before we kind of go on to Boldly, there was a kind of publication, and I'm doing it on purpose. I'm gonna catch you off guard, Peter. Yes. So, um, but there was a publication around a young lady who, I believe she fell pregnant. She was in the care system. She's a care leaver on her journey to independence. I think her name's Rosie, and she 21 years old, was pregnant, and the midwife decided to kind of make the local authority aware, make a referral to the local authority for an automatic pre-birth assessment just because she was a care leaver. What's your views on that? Is that right? Is that wrong?
I think I think from the care leaver point of view, it's almost as if like it's a taboo, it's a stigma. I'm being labeled, I'm being sort of questioned about my parenting. But I think I think from experience, oftentimes for care leavers who do have sort of children, and there have been historical concerns, it often can trigger a pre-birth, or it can trigger sort of investigation, or sort of inquiring or supporting the young person. I think the overall aim here is, how do we support this care leaver, this young person, in the short to long term? Because what we don't want to see happen repeatedly is young people coming into care and then having children, and then they then come into care. I think that's a cycle that needs to be sort of broken. But ultimately, the main aim here is, how do we support young people to be more independent post 18, so they can then make their own informed decisions moving forward in the future. So I think the assessment is all around supporting the care leaver.
Okay, sure. So realistically, your view is then that what we should be doing is really, putting the preventative measures in place before, so the support before. So, in this particular circumstance where this young lady has automatically been kind of probed for a pre-birth assessment, that would be prevented in its entirety.
Yeah, I think for a young person's point of view, they might think, listen, why am I being labelled because I'm a care leaver? Why is my past still in your eyes still relevant to me now? I'm 21 now. I've moved on. I'm in a better place, and I think that's something that they do feel strongly. And I think as a practitioner, we have to also understand from a young person's point of view how they feel. But ultimately, if the message is very clear to the care leaver, is we're here to support you moving forward in the short to long term, and perhaps not seeing this as a sort of an attack on the young person itself. But I think it's about how we go about sort of the current scenario with that young person.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks, Peter. I caught you off guard there because you wasn't expecting that question. But no, look, on to the final question. I want to understand a little bit more about Bold Leap. You mentioned, you had an ebook that, was released. You're also kind of working you and your team are working in a different way to support young people to independence. And this is really about, what can we do within the social work world to really give these young people the best opportunity in life? What is it Bold Leap are doing differently?
For me, Bold Leap is sort of a result of my own sort of narrative and story and journey from a child, adolescence, sort of an adult, and being sort of a practitioner within social work for the last 10 years, losing my mother at 16, so young, the impact that had on me, and as well, being a foster carer, and now, opening up Bold Leap. I think it's almost telling a story, isn't it? And connecting with young people from all sorts of backgrounds and challenges they face, and how we use our story, use our narrative to connect with young people, and sort of equip them with the skill sets that they need to move forward post 18. And so we look at the young person holistically, not just about accommodation. It's more than that. It's about actually the investment that we're making within young people, because we believe that they can become great, and they are great, and we believe in about changing the course of their direction and their destination. And so for us, we do a lot of nurturing, trauma-based approach, resilience approach. And again, going back to the first question, it's about building sort of strong relationships that's consistent, that's transparent with young people, and they can trust in the process, they can trust in us to be there for them in their hour of need. And so, and also about expectations, being realistic about expectations, being patient with young people. And these are things that we adopted in our approach, in our method with young people. and we're seeing certain results with them. One of the key things they've always said is they feel like home, and that's for us. It's a great sort of feeling to know a young person feels safe, they feel at home, they feel they can call upon someone when needed. And I think these are the things that we certainly heavily invest in with young people, and certainly working for us at the moment.
No, I've got a massive smile on my face. I think that statement you made, about the young people genuinely saying, look, they feel at home. That in itself is boldness, and actually it's quite touching, because I didn't know, but you mentioned something, obviously having lost your mother. So this is really something quite personal to you. This is a personal agenda, and it's amazing to see. And I feel we need more people like you, Peter, that are wanting to make a change. And I mean, I'm really, really, I've got a big smile on my face. I'm sitting here almost speechless. I'm mixing my words up, but the reality is this is a personal agenda, and you are making a real difference. You are making a physical impact out there. And look, I know you said that you had an ebook. So, how can people access this ebook? Who's the ebook for?
So the ebook, which I created last year, was essentially, it's an independent toolkit for young people. So when they come to Bold Leap, they can know what I need to do, how I need to achieve it, and they'll be supported with their youth practitioner within Bold Leap. And it's a manual guide that young people can have, and really it tells them the roadmap to independence. And I think it's important they have that, because sometimes they're not sure on where to start, and how to go about it. So for us, the ebook, which you can find on the website, Bold Leap, so it's bold-leap.com. You can find it there. You can download the ebook. It's all free, and essentially it's strengthening young people's confidence and boldness with sort of the independent skills. And we use that also as well for post-18 assessment. So we can say to their social worker, listen, they've achieved and accomplished this ebook. Here's the evidence, because within social work, it's evidence-based practice. Everybody wants evidence-based, everybody wants results, and they want to know, how has a young person who's arrived in your provision, how have they achieved? Where's the evidence? What have they done to accomplish what we believe they need to accomplish? So this ebook is key. It's fundamental. It's a guide that we feel that it's very easy to read, very easy to use, and certainly helping our young people at the moment.
No, it's amazing, and it's great progress. And I think we'll have the link probably somewhere in the description for people to be able to access it. No, but Peter, look, I really appreciate your time. I know you got a busy schedule as well, because I know you're always keeping busy. But thank you for taking your time out to speak with me today. And look, the points you make, I think that will really hit home for a lot of people watching. Thanks for your time.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.
You too. And guys, thank you for watching this video. As ever, we'll be back at some point with a more detailed interview with another social work professional on a very different topic. But for now, guys, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all at another point.